Swipe Up, episode 225, the podcast where I share my unfiltered thoughts on the latest news and entertainment updates. Netflix, Squid Game, reality show was reportedly an inhuman disaster. The idea that Netflix decided to produce a reality show based on the successful show, South Korean show, Squid Game, is insane. It is completely tone deaf to think that that would be a good idea on its own, aside from any disastrous stories related to the actual production of this reality TV show. So on its face, already making a horrible decision. That is not the thing that should be taken away from the show Squid Game, is that we should actually make a competition like Squid Game. Although they did. And apparently it has gone horrible. There have been horrible stories. So Netflix is creating a reality spinoff of its 2021 drama Squid Game. And it's going to be called Squid Game The Challenge. The challenge features 456 participants. So I think it's the same amount of people that were part of the Squid Game in the show. The prize money is going to be $4.56 million, which the currency is different. Same amount. The show currency was won, which I think translated, I forget how that broke down. I did an episode by episode recap where I broke down the exchange rate, so I don't remember where that went. But this one, the prize, which is a lot of money. Usually, like reality competition shows, you win like $50,000, $100,000, maybe $1 million. But over $4.5 million prize is kind of crazy. Participants in the 10-episode series were reportedly facing freezing temperatures, fatigue, and unsafe filming conditions. According to reports, at least 10 contestants collapsed during the first day of filming, and medics were called to set repeatedly. So you think there would have been some kind of thought to make sure they were taking proper safety precautions with these things? Even though I know shows like the show Fear Factor, like, there's only so much precautions they can take. Like, that was a show, Fear Factor, where things could have gone horribly wrong. Like using live bulls in times where, like, if a contestant got kicked in the head by a bull, they could easily be killed or receive permanent brain damage. And things could have gotten ugly on shows like that. And I believe they were able to avoid a lot of that stuff, but none of that stuff is guaranteed. But scenes like this, like freezing temperatures and those types of things, is kind of crazy. Contestants have claimed that the game was rigged and that a few influencer participants were pre-selected to move on to new rounds regardless of the results, which that's kind of crazy. I mean, reality shows in general are mostly scripted, but I don't believe the competition shows necessarily are. Other than like how they choose to edit, and in the editing are able to kind of fabricate narratives and stories and make people look better or worse. But as far as pre-selecting who would move forward, I mean, it would make sense that they would choose like influencers, people who had a big audience, in order to kind of keep that audience invested in the show. The longer they go, the longer they may stay with the show. But just kind of like to, one, makes unsafe conditions, and then two, to rig the show, because if either of those got out, bad publicity is not something that really helps people these days. We're in a time where no news is sometimes better than bad news, considering, in show business these days, having a negative perception of a person or a thing can really hurt it, because we are so connected, and you can really form movements to kind of band together and to protest against something or to boycott a thing. So yeah, interesting. Netflix allegedly booked return flights for international contestants before the games even began, and these flights later turned out to occur after their eliminations. That's interesting. One contestant referred to the set as a quote-unquote war zone, which that kind of, I mean, that if you've seen Squid Game, you know, there's obviously they're not actually shooting people on this show like in Squid Game, but, you know, I would imagine, especially like the first game in Squid Game where they play red light, green light, and you got a bunch of people in like this giant space and sniper rifles lining the walls, and people eliminated would be shot, kind of war zone-ish. But to have a set referred to as a war zone versus a set being the feeling of participating in a thing being compared to that are two different things. But they only say the set. They refer to the set. It's interesting. I want to know the context of that a little bit more, I guess. Another anonymous contestant stated that they were treated as extras in a TV show and not as contestants in a game show, which would lead to and kind of give more support to the idea that the show is rigged. If they knew who they wanted to move forward, then a lot of the 465 participants could easily be treated like they are just, fodder for the show or background actors. Injuries were reported shortly after filming began. Okay. I mean, I'm sure if you have a physical type of a show, injuries can definitely happen. The original Squid Game series was praised as one of the most exciting series of Netflix series to hit Netflix in some time, which I agree. I love the Netflix show Squid Game. I did an episode-by-episode breakdown of the show, which was very difficult because it is a Korean show, and I do not speak Korean. I probably destroyed a lot of the names of the characters, but it is a show that I loved. It is a show that I'm excited for the sequel. And aside from the novelty of this spin-off show, everything else related to this spin-off reality version of the Squid Game games, it just is a bad idea. It's on its face, and the initial announcement of it seemed like a bad idea. Now that we're hearing, I mean, who knows how valid these accounts are. Sometimes people lie if they feel a certain way, but it makes me definitely more interested. It's weird how the drama of the making of the show, if it actually does come out, to see what the reality, see how it's actually put together. It only makes me more intrigued, and sadly, it really just makes me more intrigued in some ways just to check it out. I don't know if it's a show that I would necessarily stay. There's another show on Netflix, a competition show in Korea, that a lot of the contestants, it's called Physique, I think. And there's 100 contestants, like all kinds of athletes from different disciplines, mostly from Korea, but there's, a few people from different races, but they all kind of, like there's this tall white guy who plays baseball in Korea from America. There's a black dude who is, I don't know if he's a gymnast or in some way, but they all kind of are from South Korea. And their competitions that they do are in some ways similar to Squid Game, even so much as the contestants in this show, Physique, compare it to Squid Game, compares some of the competition. I've only seen a couple episodes, And that's interesting, but it's not this show. So I don't know, man. And it's also interesting that Netflix is putting out a Korean reality competition show that is so similar to, in many ways, to this fictional show Squid Game, that is going to be a reality competition show. It's weird that they would put out a show that is like literally compared to Squid Game by the contestants. It's kind of weird. It's almost like they're putting out competing reality competition shows, which is weird, but who knows? I don't know. It's a bummer that they decided to produce this show. It's even more of a bummer that these stories are coming out of people, the horrible conditions. And if it is true that they are rigging it, it's like bummer after bummer. I would be curious to know what production company is producing it, because it's going to Netflix, but I don't know if it's Netflix that is producing the show, right? Like a company who produces the show could have sold this idea to Netflix. I don't know those details, but what was a bad idea from the start seems like it's only continuing to be a bad idea, and hopefully doesn't tarnish the brand and the name of the show, because I am looking forward to and excited to watch season 2 of Squid Game whenever that comes out, because that is a show that was super unique, so good, and definitely left it open for more story to be told. So I just hope that this experiment, this spinoff, doesn't tarnish the original show. And if it does, I feel bad for the creator of Squid Game, that like I have to imagine he has to be getting like money for them using Squid Game, the name, unless he sold the ownership of the name, which would be sad that if this guy that created Squid Game is now having his thing kind of dragged through the mud, as it were. I don't know. A lot of kind of open-ended questions, but these are the only updates of this show, that it's actually being filmed. It'll be interesting to see if it ever comes out, and to see how it plays out, see if you can see how horrible it is. I remember I read a little bit of like one of the things where they were playing they play the red light, green light game, and apparently the contestants wore squibs, the things that movies do that make it appear like they're getting shot. So it seemed like the production of this reality show is to also make it simulate what happened to the contestants in the Squid Game fictional show, right? Where when you're eliminated, you like these squibs go off to make it look like you're shot, which I've heard those hurt, and I've heard that the temperatures during playing this and how difficult it is to stay still when you're shivering because it's so cold, that a lot of people were eliminated just because it was so cold and they couldn't keep their body from involuntarily shaking and shivering, which is a bummer. Which I guess they filmed it in the UK, which obviously the UK not really known for its warm, comfortable climates.
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.